Good evening. I'd like to call to order this agenda review for our meeting. It's going to be on the 24th. Can I get a roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Dollison, who is not here this evening. Commissioner Mercer.
Here.
Commissioner Dantzler.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Yates.
Here.
And Mayor Birdsong.
Here. All right, these presentations will come on Monday, am I correct?
That is correct, sir.
All right, and then we'll have comments from the, we have our minutes, and then we have comments from the audience, and then we'll be into our second readings. 2505.
So this is the one that we had an individual speak at the first reading. This is the rezoning of a parcel from industrial light to commercial highway C3. This is at the corner of Dundee Road, and I believe it's considered Carl or Overlook Drive there, as you see on the map. That vacant land that's been cleared to the north, that's the site of the future Publix at the corner of Country Club Road and Dundee Road. So you can get a general sense of the area there. There's been no changes since first reading.
All right, thank you. Moving on to 2513.
This is our ordinance that will prohibit smoking and vaping in public parks and beaches, except for unfiltered cigars. So this is no changes since first reading. Again, this aligns with what we're permitted to do from state statutes and is in direct alignment with what Polk County did with their ordinance in 2023. No changes since first reading.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I got a question.
Yes. Go ahead.
This is a question for Charlie. I've got no problem with this, but my problem has always been enforcement and what it puts our officers where they have to enforce this. Another potential point of contact that our officers have with people for seemingly smaller infractions like smoking. Are you concerned about this at all, or is the chief, who's not here? I don't see his chief
in the
here.
back.
Oh, is chief here? Okay. Is that either one of you guys can sound off if there's any concern whatsoever with your guys with enforcement on this thing? I know we have opinions on that. I just want to get your opinion to make sure that you don't have a problem with this as far as enforcement goes.
I'll fill in for what you go.
No, not at all. Okay, sorry about that. Commissioner, no, we don't have a problem with that. That's just a regular citizen contact. It's how we approach those. We approach them educationally first. Okay, when we're talking to these individuals, it's not like a traffic stop or any other contact like that. This is an enforcement, an ordinance. We make contact with them, and it's not the contact that's going to be the issue. It's going to be depending on the event.
The ski show.
Correct. It's going to be all over the place. And if we're going to be running here, we're going to be running there, but which we're ready to do. It's not a problem.
So you don't see a potential conflict?
No, not at all.
Okay, that's all I was asking. I mean, I've got no problem with the ordinance. I just want to make sure we're not putting you guys in a position where you're having to, do things that you're not comfortable doing.
No, sir. Like I said, I believe it's going to be more educational when we're talking to these individuals. And that's the most important aspect of this, is the educational side of it.
Okay.
Right. And Commissioner Dancer, I'd also say part of that education starts on the side of Parks and Recreation staff with proper signage at key points of entry into our recreation and open spaces to signify, cite the ordinance, smoking and vaping prohibited within this space.
Yeah.
All right. I'm good. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, but then we move to the next item.
So this is item 10A,
Yes.
which is the award of an ITB to Metallizing Technical Services LLC. This is associated with the two pedestrian bridges that exist along the Channel Lakes Trail to the north and immediate south of Carefree Cove. So the one you see there, that is south of Carefree Cove and spans the canal that goes from Lake Hartridge to Lake Conine. And then the next one, AJ, if you would, is is that the same one? That's to the north. Yeah, there you go. The other one is just before you get to 1792 intersection.
1%.
So these were two of our pedestrian bridges that we needed to have inspected, and that has been done. And some improvements and recommendations were provided to enhance the bridge's long-term performance and structural integrities. So we did an ITB in January of this year. Metallizing Technical Services LLC was the lowest responsible bidder to that, and we're recommending that the commission award the contract for the work to them. It would include coating of the existing steel structure, rub rail replacement, concrete pavement replacement, concrete apron replacement, removal of some of the vegetation around there, and then some bridge deck repairs. This is a budgeted item. It's at $773,184. It is budgeted within the streets division. And these bridges have been in place for a number of years. If you think back to when we first opened the Chain of Lakes Trail many years ago, these have had minimal maintenance of this magnitude performed since then.
Okay, thank you. 10B.
10B is the reappointment of Mr. Gary Clark. I don't know if Gary is not here this evening, but he may be on Monday evening. I think you all will recognize Gary Clark if you don't know him personally. He is the individual that helps facilitate the Honoring Our Heroes, Remembering Our Heroes event that we do every September 11th down in South Central Park. So the Winter Haven Firefighters Pension Board of Trustees has 5 members. 2 of those are required to be city residents that are appointed by the city commission. 2 are full-time firefighters elected by the majority of the firefighters, and then the 5th member is chosen by a majority of the first 4 members. So Mr. Clark has been a member of the trustee he's been a trustee for a number of years. His term actually expired in January of this year, but he would like to continue to serve. So this is a commission appointed position, hence the need for you to do the reappointment. And if he is so reappointed, he would serve a 4-year term that would expire January of 2029.
All right, thank you. 10C.
Okay, so this is a rather unique item, and we're excited to be able to present this to you this evening. First, I want to recognize Mr. Tom Olt, who is with us in the audience. I think many of you know Tom. Been just a great member of our community forever, and very active in so many different things. He approached my office, I'm going to say probably a month and a half ago, with the interest in contributing funds to go towards the commissioning of a permanent piece of public artwork that would be installed in one of our downtown parks. This artwork consists of a Carillon bell tower, which you can see an image of there on the screen. I believe that this one is from someplace near Amsterdam, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe the one that would be commissioned for Winter Haven would be very similar to this. Mr. Olt has graciously agreed to donate the cost of having this commissioned and installed in a location that we've identified within South Central Park. So our staff worked with Mr. Olt to identify a location that would be accommodating to the sculpture itself, but it also would not have a negative impact on other uses that we have within that public space. This was taken to your Cultural Arts Advisory Committee. We have that committee for this very reason, to help vet these things out. So we called a special meeting of that committee yesterday, and those that were in attendance, which constituted a quorum, unanimously approved of bringing this forward, a recommendation for the commission to proceed. There's a couple things that happen with this. First, there's a memorandum of understanding that is an attachment within the fact sheet that is that's between the city and Mr. Olt. That outlines certain parameters to include that he, as the donor, would make a donation to the city in an amount not to exceed $300,000 unless an additional amount is agreed to in writing by the donor or donee. And that $300,000 is anticipated to cover the cost of the fabrication, delivery, and installation of the the bell tower, the permitting that we would need to pull through the city, and the foundation to be established for that, the electric to power this piece of art, a decorative fence that would go around it, as well as some landscaping. The funds will be placed in a restricted fund that is maintained by the city, and we will be the procurer of the actual artwork through the Verdon Company. Julie Adams from our team, along with the city attorney, have been working with them to make some amendments to their purchasing contract. There is a portion of the funds that will be reserved to have the largest bell, and I think that's the one at the bottom, if I'm not mistaken. Tom, is that correct? That would be inscribed, memorializing this donation in homage to the late Mr. and Mrs. Olt, who are Tom's parents, as well as his recently deceased wife, Jerry Olt. So it's kind of an homage to them and a gift to the community. One of the reasons we're trying to advance this quickly, although we are dotting the I's and crossing the T's and making sure we do everything by our procurement standards and our normal operations, but we do have some concerns that the issue of federal tariffs could have a significant impact on the cost of this. You have a lot of steel work that's involved in the fabrication of these bells. And so the ability to maintain quoted prices on anything you're dealing with in terms of steel right now has gone from 60 down to 30 down to now somewhere around 15-day committal on quotes. So we're trying to expedite that as quickly as possible. I'd certainly offer Mr. Old an opportunity to offer any comments if you feel necessary. I don't know what the delivery time frame is, Tom. Do you, off the top of your head?
Thank you, Michael, for the good presentation. The one correction I have is the structure steel. The belts themselves are bronze.
Thank you.
And the time frame from signing to delivery is 7 to 9 months. So it might go into next year. We might get lucky and have it by the end of this year. But that's the plan. And I think it's a great investment and a great time.
So our recommendation is that the commission authorize myself to enter into the memorandum of agreement or memorandum of understanding with Mr. Old to work with the city attorney to finalize the agreement for purchase from the Verdon Company to initiate the purchase of the proposed bell tower and proceed with all the necessary related actions to bring this to fruition. But just a really exciting project for Winter Haven.
All right, thank you. Any questions?
I just say thank you for your contribution, sir.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And this is one of those ones that uniquely aligns with one of our quality of life pillars, number 2.3, about championing the arts, beautification, and enriching the community. So I think that that's pretty exciting as well.
All right, thank you. All right, we are now to the 10. Did we do the, oh, we did that one. So we're at resolution R2510.
So 11A and 11B, these are resolutions 2510, 2511. So
Right.
DOT, as you know, accepts applications for transportation alternatives, multi-use trail and regional multi-use trail projects. The current application cycle includes funding for these types of projects in fiscal years 26-27 through 30-31. So the city's funding applications would be submitted to the Polk County Transportation Organization, the TPO, of which 3 of you serve on, as well as the Florida Department of Transportation. For this cycle, the city's applying for funding of 2 projects, and this is a little unique. A lot of times we're applying for these types of projects that occur upon city-owned roads, or complete street projects. In this case, we're applying for 2 projects that are actually DOT roads. So Cypress Gardens Boulevard and US 17. This is the layout of the Cypress Gardens Boulevard section. This particular one is approximately 1.7 miles long and goes from Old Helena Road to Lake Florence Drive to Waterview Way, which is down at Winterset condominiums. The project here would install a 10-foot multi-use path on at least one side of the roadway, provide infill sidewalks in locations where multi-use path is not constructed, provide for street trees, improve the intersection at Legoland Way, install street lighting. The estimated cost is approximately $14.24 million. And this project, and if AJ, can you go to the US 17 one for me? I think it's the next one. So the US 17, this one goes from 3rd Street Southwest, which is, as you can see on the very south end, it's Cypress Gardens Boulevard, all the way up to Havendale Boulevard. It is about 2.8 miles in length. This would include projects such as removing portions of that continuous center left turn lane and replacing that with raised landscape islands. That creates some beautification in that area. It creates some traffic calming, and it certainly provides some areas of refuge for people crossing the street. It would widen existing sidewalks to a minimum of 6 feet, upgrade existing street lighting, and the cost for this one's approximately $8.22 million. These projects may look familiar to you as you think back to 2021. There were 2 resolutions that were adopted by the City Commission that endorsed the Cypress Gardens Boulevard and the US Highway 17 vision plans, respectively. Those were efforts that were taken on by the design studio with FDOT, and we worked very closely with them. Those plans have never come to fruition because there hasn't been a project to advance them. So our recommendation is that we submit those to TPO under this program. If they're funded, the expectation is that DOT would be the receiving agency of those funds and carry the projects forward. So that's what the resolutions do in terms of advancing those for TPO consideration.
Any questions?
Got one. So both of these corridors really have a lot of sidewalks already in place. So are we just sprucing up those sidewalks, or what do you envision that?
I'm going to let MJ speak to that because he's more familiar with what the vision plans laid out.
Yeah. So, and the vision plans are kind of early and conceptual, right? So as you get into a DOT project, there'll probably be some PD&E and design. There'll have to be design work on the front end of what you can actually fit. But based on the community feedback, on Cypress Gardens Boulevard, it was to really put in a multi-use trail, something that is a little bigger, maybe a little separated from the roadway. And then on Highway 17, there's some places where the sidewalk gets really narrow. So making sure that, those areas are widened out so you're not on a 4-foot sidewalk right next to the edge of traffic. So it's really making the areas more pedestrian friendly overall, and then adding some traffic safety stuff along with that.
And so would you envision taking the existing sidewalk and just making that the multi-use trail, or?
So it depends on Cypress Gardens Boulevard. Yeah, it would probably be I think what that vision plan had looked at was maybe shifting the road some as you do that, because if you're at a big section of that corridor is a very rural right of way, a very rural county road right of way. You got big drainage ditches on either side of the road. So as you probably end up piping some of that stormwater conveyance, that creates some opportunity to tie in and put those sidewalks maybe farther back from the road, even if they exist right up against it today.
Well, on the boulevard, is there a reason why we're stopping where we're stopping and not going all the way up to Overlook Drive?
So this portion, when DOT did this, it started off as a safety analysis of that section of the roadway. So that's what this is based on their plan for that section of the roadway. There's another section of work that we did with DOT that goes from basically Highway 17 back to Overlook. And so that's another effort that we're working through with the DOT on how to make those improvements in that area.
Final question. Would you envision this having a large traffic impact, or would this be more off the road? Because when I hear infrastructure and adding changes, I'd get Lake Elbert vision and like, oh, we don't need that mess on Cypress Gardens Boulevard.
Tough to say at this point. I mean, if you're doing a full intersection rebuild, that has an impact. But in the long run, traffic efficiency would be a piece of both of these two, right? How do you move traffic more efficiently? Do you change access points so that, there's less potential for conflict?
Can we talk a little bit about 17, Highway 17 and what they're doing there? You're saying that they're going to take out the middle?
No, so one of the things that was recommended was creating pedestrian safe havens, right? So when you go to cross that, it's a long stretch of road. So there's some opportunities to take those middle turn lanes and add in like a median that becomes a pedestrian safe haven halfway across the roadway. Not totally dissimilar from what you see a little bit farther north on 17 near New Beginnings High School. They added that median in the middle of the road so that if you're trying to cross that big stretch, there's a place you can stop before you cross the next lane of traffic. And then just some upgrading street lighting and sidewalks and things like that in there. Nothing really major in there, but a lot of little improvements that make a big difference at the end of the day.
Well, I know when they changed at Havendale and 17 and they changed the lighting there, it was a mess for a while. Not only that, they have a small turn lane, left turn lane, that loads up rather quickly. And so the people in the center lane, you couldn't get to the left lane to turn. And so you backed up everything all the way back.
Yeah, I think that's worked out. That was in the initial phase when they were still running. The roadway had been shifted, but they were still running the old timing on the signal. And then once they got the new timing in the signal that was designed to work with the roadway as it is today, that seems to have.
It does move a little faster now, but it was really backed up. For a
Yeah,
while.
that's those, the construction and the time it takes to make those improvements. There's always friction that goes along with that, but it's better in the long run because of it.
In fact, that roadway is one of the few that I've seen that you start out with turn lanes and then they go away. But then before the light changes back,
It turns.
the
has to
turn
do again.
lanes come back on.
Yeah,
Because
it's
it only
unusual
loads it.
timing.
It's-
It
I've
is.
never, is there anywhere else in the city?
I don't know of anywhere else that you have
I
a,
don't-
a repeat of a
Turn-
protected left
It had to.
like that. But, I think that when we look at this, certainly, for DOT to assess how best to do this, I keep thinking back to when we did Cypress Gardens Boulevard at First Street and US 17 and the absolute, outcries we heard about a single northbound lane on First Street will never work. And I think if you've driven through that area, that traffic flows 1,000 times better than it did, prior to. So they're doing some creative stuff. And I think the repeat of that left turn signal is unique. I'm glad you mentioned that because
Yeah.
when I first went through it, I thought, is the signal timing screwed up here? Why is it doing this again? Repeating itself, but it worked.
I'll tell you where they do it. When you go down near, I see it when I go to Bach Tower, alternate 27 down there. That little gas station as you come down behind Publix where the Chalet Suzanne used to be, that intersection does it.
Oh.
It's weird, but
Yeah.
I do see that happen there.
So does this have to, it goes to the TPO. So is this a project that would have to ultimately go into the 5-year work plan?
This is just to get some momentum, try and get some momentum on it. And this is, their DOT roads, DOT did these vision plans. It's trying to help get those prioritized within that DOT work plan. And as you get into design, there'd be a lot of opportunities to assess how have the corridors changed since this visioning was done, regather some public input, things like that. But yeah, you're talking
Yeah, getting it
20,
into the
30.
5-year
as
work
in the
plan
earliest.
is, yeah. But we get 3 votes now, right?
You might get into the 25-year work plan. It's a good start.
Okay. All right, so that's it for that. We have ordinance first reading, 12A.
Certainly. Eric, would you like to speak to this, please?
Sure. Mayor Commissioners, Ordinance 2514. This is an administrative request to amend our comprehensive plan. Basically, it's to amend our comprehensive plan to insert policies regarding the Central Polk Parkway East corridors, to add that corridor to our transportation map series. within our comprehensive plan and also insert language basically requiring staff to work with projects that are in that corridor to help preserve that project corridor as developers come in, not dissimilar to what we did with Villamar. If you think about that project, we had Thompson Nursery Road that was on the county's CIP at the time, and we required the developer to dedicate right away for that corridor. This is inserting language in our comp plan requiring us to do the same with respect to the Central Parkway East.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Not a question on this, but we're about to jump into a new quarter here, second quarter 2025 already. Is there any way we can, because I know we get these updates on our heat map and our roads and all the work that we're putting forth on our roads. Is it too much to ask to get a quarterly update of, just where we are on our maps, that way we're more on top of when we get
traffic
phone calls.
volumes?
Yes. Well, no, our road mapping that we're doing, like condition of roads and, okay, yep, this road's now been done. This road's now been done. This road's now been identified. I just think,
PCI, pavement condition index.
yeah, I just think a quarterly update is probably more appropriate even though I know things may not move that fast.
Probably semi-annual might be more effective for that, Mayor Pro Tem, just because we're not paving roads every quarter.
We just get so many transportation, phone calls and complaints, and just having that kind of more on the top of our minds. I think it would be healthy and a good thing to just be aware of more frequently.
Yeah, we can certainly give you a pavement condition index update. We'll gather one together here pretty quickly, and then certainly you're going to see a big change in that, 6 months from now once we've gone through, because we do our TPI, our TIP work in the summer months, typically August, September is when we're getting that done. It's a little more spread out now as we're using some different treatments, microsurfacing and some of that, but let's see what we can put together for you.
I think that's just number one these days, and so I think the more, even if it's not, even if there's no update, that's an update. Appreciate it.
Anything else? All right, then we'll move on to the new business item, grant and aid.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm going to lead this off and ask Katrina to kind of tag team with me as she needs to. I do want to thank and recognize the chairman of your Grant and Aid Application Review Committee, Mr. Alex Santiago, who's with us this evening. Appreciate that, taking time out of his schedule to be here for agenda review. So as you know, the Agenda Review Committee met back in November, as they do every fall, to review the process and bring forward some ideas on improvements. They had identified 4 improvements or 4 changes that they would like to see: the updating of the application timeline, the elimination of the $40,000 single initiative funding category. They were requesting clarification from the City Commission on how to address funding requests from schools and the other established foundations. And then also clarification from the Commission regarding the funding levels for those legacy agencies, which are noted in your fact sheet, of being Winter Haven Public Education Partnership, Girls Inc., Neighborhood Service Center, Boys and Girls Club, Meals on Wheels, and the Haley Center. Those are those agencies that we fund historically at a higher level. So back in November, the Commission had approved the update on the timeline and the elimination of the $40,000 single initiative. Earlier this year in February, we came before you and sought some guidance on the issue regarding funding of schools. And the response, the consensus of the Commission was to no longer provide funding to schools through this program, that those organizations have access to other governmental funds and benefit from other forms of support from the city, but that still wanted to focus in on the nonprofits that support the schools, such as Kids PAC as an example, or Public Education Partnership. There was also consensus to avoid funding organizations that had well-established foundations that receive support from the city through other means, and instead focus on not-for-profit agencies without existing robust funding mechanisms already in place. In terms of the how to move forward with the legacy partners and the overall amount, there was a desire from the commission to wait until the fiscal year 26 application window had closed to consider those, and that window has now closed. So on March 15th, just this past Friday, the grant and aid cycle did close. So our staff is presently reviewing all the applications to do the due diligence piece of that. However, we did receive this year 76 total applications. That the requested fund in total was $777,500. Of those 76, 36 are returning applicants, meaning they've been with us before. There were 40 new applicants. Of the applications received, again, looking back to the total of 76, 5 of those are schools. Those are noted within your fact sheet. They combined for a total of $55,000 in requests. 11 are organizations that are or have established foundations. Those totaled $68,300 in requests. So, over $110,000 just from schools and those with foundations. The fact sheet notes that if you remove the school and foundation applicants that are noted within the fact sheet, the balance of the total request is $654,200. Last year, our budget was $305,000 to start, and I believe we ended up being around $314,316 with some accommodations the commission had made. So that's where we stand today. We do have the requests from the 6 individual agencies that we define as legacy agencies, and their requests are consistent with the amounts funded in prior years. So Boys and Girls Club at $45,000, Girls Inc. at $20,000, PEP, which is now the Learning Resource Center of Polk County. So that's the PEP Education Center on Avenue R. That is again at $20,000. Meals on Wheels at $20,000. Neighborhood Service Center at $20,000, and the Haley Center. They're requesting actually $33,000 this year, which is a $13,000 increase over prior years. So I think where we're at in bringing this forward is just to finalize some guidance from the commission on how to proceed with the funding requests from the schools and the other established foundations. That was the consensus we got. We just would like some firm direction on that before the Grant and Aid Committee begins their review process, and then direction on how to address the legacy applicants and the total amount that you would like to see us earmark for this program, if we stay at the $305,000 or if you want to see that increased. I will opine that we'll take whatever direction that the commission gives. I don't know what our budget is going to look like in total for fiscal year 26. Certainly, we all spent last week in Tallahassee, and there is a pretty significant push to curtail municipal revenues, whether that's in the form of utility transfers, in the elimination of surcharges, the capping or perhaps eliminating business tax receipts, potential reductions in property tax and or expansion of homestead exemptions and similar exemptions. I just don't know what that's going to look like. And so I am cautious that if it is increased in amount, that we're going to have to figure out how to do that based upon what revenues we have in play. We won't have a firm grip on that until probably sometime in June. In July is really when we know for certain. So I just offered that up. Katrina, did you have anything to add beyond that? Like I said, we're in that 2-week window right now of just reviewing all the applications to make sure if they're missing something, we can follow up with them so they can get that clarified for us.
You may not know the answer to these 2 questions then based on that comment, but my first question is, of the 36 returning applications, were all 36 of those previously funded last year?
They were all funded in the current
to
fiscal
some,
cycle.
to some level,
Yes.
to some level. And then the 40 new applications, are those all city limits of Winter Haven applications, or are there outliers in those? And like I say, you may not know that just yet.
I think that's part of the review process. And even if they're not city limit agencies, it's a matter of who are they serving?
Servicing, right?
Yeah. So Kids Pack is not a city of Winter Haven agency.
Right. And that's what I probably
Yeah.
should have used better terminology there, but
So
servicing citizens. of
That's
Winter Haven.
the main thing we look at, Mayor Pro Tem, is who are you who are you helping in this immediate community? It's the taxpayers' dollars that are going towards this. We want to make sure it's going back to residents of this community.
And we try to make a final decision on this by when going into our budget.
Well, we bring it back to you. Katrina, do you know off the top of your head the dates of the GARC meetings?
They're in early May. We bring a recommendation back the second meeting in May.
So well before any potential finalization coming out of the state.
Right.
Um,
But I think the challenge, Mayor Pro Tem, is I think there has to be some cap to it so that committee can make sound recommendations with it.
Well, I guess where I was getting at was we could make a recommendation and provide that guidance. However, if timing worked out, and that's why I was asking the question, was if timing worked out to where some of those funds, some of those things did pass the state that would greatly impact our funding sources, we could come back and say, hey, look, this was our intention, but the funding is no longer there, so we need to cut this back at that point. So kind of providing that guidance subject to finalization from the state.
And we tell, if we say it once, we've said it 1,000 times, that even once the commission votes or hears that item in late May or early June, as it has been, we tell them that's not final. Nothing is final until the second meeting in September when a budget is passed, because so much can happen in that window. Don't run off and think that, okay, we made it through the Grant and Aid Committee and the commission's heard it and they didn't have any concerns. We have $10,000 coming our way. That's all subject to what the final budget looks like and when the checks are actually cut. So we make that abundantly clear, and I'm sure we've said it in every single one of our training programs. And when Alex addresses those that are in the audience, when we do the Grant and Aid Committee meetings, if we do one or two, same thing. Whatever the recommendation is here, nothing is final and firm until you have a second budget hearing and that's approved at that time.
Let me actually just T is whatever guidelines we may put forth tonight, they would have to be voted on by us
On Monday, yeah. If the guidance of how, so
Yeah,
these folks
yeah,
can do
yeah.
their job.
Okay. I just, the first thing, are we going to fund schools?
I think as a commission, we had discussed that and the majority was no.
No. All right. So that's one thing. We know that. What about school foundations?
I think it was foundations in general, and the consensus on that was also no from
All
the
right.
commission.
Can I weigh in a couple things here?
Oh, yes. No, well, we're just having a discussion.
No, I know. Before we make a decision, though, I want to give you some perspective because we go through this with the county, and we have this very discussion every quarter about the TDC and for Arts Foundation. And we did a study, and I don't know, 60% of the money went to companies like Bach Tower and Theater Winter Haven, companies, operations that were very well established. And if you give them $50,000, $50,000 are going to be spent exactly like what was put on their application. And we constantly are thinking, why are we continuing to give the rich people more money? But at the end of the day, what we want is good, high quality arts programming in Polk County, and the organizations that give us really good, high quality organizations and follow the letters of the law, you know, granted, they have grant writers and they have people to do it, but at the end of the day, that's what the TDC is trying to fund, is good, high quality arts programming. So it stands to reason that we would give more money to people that are doing it the right way instead of startups. So, and I think that might play in a way. What I want to make sure that we do is not get so many people applying that are brand new, that are having, hey, I can go to the city and get money and help get my charity off the ground or whatever, that we penalize the ones that we know are working. You know what I mean? So we've got some people in here, Boys Club, Girls Club. We know that we give them 50 grand. That money is being spent exactly the way we want it to be spent. Whereas if we give it to some new startup over here, even though it's $2,500, we have so many people applying now. If we water it down too much, all the good organizations aren't going to get as much money. See what I'm trying to get to?
Didn't we establish a length of time?
$2,500, I think, and
No,
the most they can get is $2,500 the first year.
No, I
5,000.
mean,
How much?
5,000.
Oh, 5,000.
no, I mean a length of time that the entity has been in existence. We don't have that.
They just have to be, they have to have their nonprofit status, and they have to have, be registered to do business in the state of Florida.
Having said that, I have no problem eliminating schools, because I've been in favor of that all along, and foundations for that matter. But all I'm trying to say is, a new startup organization, and if you're going to give them 10 grand and $8,000 is going to go to pay some executive director salaries to get this off the ground, and no matter how worthy it may not be something that we want to consider or give as many points to as we would somebody that's already established. And if you start giving everybody that applies 5 grand or 10 grand, then the really good companies don't get as much. See what I'm saying? So I got no problem taking the schools out. I'm just saying, if we start just doing blanket, hey, we're going to eliminate these people, we might eliminate somebody that's doing something really good for the people of Winter Haven.
I'm not so sure we shouldn't have a length of time
Yeah, I agree. I'm not saying that.
component to.
Yeah, I agree. I think startups, they should be around for a while.
And that's certainly something we can
So
look at in next November.
Because we didn't have an
We
impact.
didn't
I
have
this
this
I
time
think
around.
it would be unfair and not transparent to do that.
good to
on
do
this
it now,
cycle.
midstream. So
Make a note of that to
We've-
come back
we-
to that.
we've come up with two things that we basically are in agreement with: foundations and schools. So that eliminates what, 100 and
23.
how much? 100 and
123, 300.
So that eliminates,
Still at 654, 200.
okay. And sort of what you're saying, Commissioner Dantzler, I sort of like to stick with the legacy agencies at the
We know
level.
what we're getting with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're doing a great job, and we know what we get.
So I personally would like to see them continue at their levels.
Well, so you have one that has requested an increase, and actually 2 of them have requested an increase over what their level was last year. So are you saying that those should,
Only one, Mayor. Pro
Only
Tem.
one, I would keep them
Well-
right where they are if it
oh,
was.
I gotcha.
They historically, several years back, received 33,000 from us, and then they missed an application cycle, which is why they went back down to 20. So I think that's where that, just from context for the request.
I don't have any issue with that. I think the question at hand is, though, we're still at 654 with a budget of 305. How much are we willing, if any, to increase from that 305 budget?
Well, I'm just sort of backing my way into it from this, given the committee until to come back. But with these legacy agencies, I would keep their funding, even though they want a $13,000 increase, I wouldn't increase it. That's just me. I'm just saying.
So everybody else is, so I guess my point is, everybody else is still requesting about 500,000 in total.
509. And if you, That's the balance of everything else that's out there. So if you back out those legacy, those six,
But I'm thinking that, I don't know if some of those agencies, when they look at them, they may not even recommend funding them.
Well, just because we set a budget doesn't mean they have to meet that budget. They could always make the recommendations and come in under budget.
which they did last year.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. But I think the three biggest things is what we just sort of agreed to give them directions. And then when they come back,
What T needs is a number. If we decide to raise it
a
by
number.
if we were raise it by 10%, they're your 335,000. So if we decide, hey, the most we're going to do is 335, T's got a number to put in the budget.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we can later kind of figure out how we're going to divvy it up, whether we want to.
And the committee has that number to work
Yeah,
kind of
that's what,
back
that's what
into
I
as
think
well.
Alex is after.
Right.
And the
right.
fact that we don't want to do schools, I think that's
Right.
another thing that he wants to take back to his committee. I think in foundations,
in
I
foundations,
think we can kind of agree on that and then say you got 335 max to use or if you want to, I'm just saying if you want to do a 10% bump.
I just, the thing is that, and I think that would be the way for us all to agree is a percentage of what we did last year. And my question to T would be, whatever amount, if we agree that we're going to give out, I'm gonna use just a hypothetical number. Say if we decide we're gonna give $400,000, and that's what the committee is working with, it would really not be good for us if we later on say that we're going to reduce from $400,000. I would be more inclined to set an amount that we know we can fund regardless of what happened in Tallahassee. Now, that's just me.
Well, last year was 305.
316. So,
316,
Yeah, that's
okay.
what you actually gave. We started, I'm sorry, let me apologize. Let me correct that. We started with a budget of 305. We had some questions that came before GARC. They turned money back into the commission and chose not to fund a handful of agencies that we then presented to you. And based upon the amount the commission thought those agencies should be, we got to 316.
Right.
Let me just throw this out. And I think this is reasonable with the understanding of nothing is final until a budget's approved. You could look at a 10% increase on 316,000. That gives you a budget of $347,600. Once you back out your legacy agencies that you've just talked about at the amounts that they were funded last year, it gives the Grant and Aid Committee approximately $200,000 to consider the applications that are before them. It's an increase. I think it's manageable, but of course it's subject to what actual revenues allow. And if everybody has to take a haircut, once we know what revenues are, then everybody takes a haircut.
5% takes us to 331.
Let's just do 10.
10% is
Because
347.
one time, I do know, one time up here, that we really did have to go back
Cut them in half.
and reduce. We cut half or more.
Truth be known, when somebody's asking for 10 grand and they're only going to get 3 grand, it may not help them. You see what I'm saying? We can cut down so much that the grant that we give them really doesn't do what they're asking to do. That's what we grapple with the arts is people that are asking for 40 grand and we give them 10,000, they really can't even do their project.
So as the committee's reviewing these applications, they could certainly take that into consideration in the fact that if they're asking for X amount of dollars to do, we ask for a cost, right, of what they're asking for. And if the committee deems like, it's a $20,000 cost, so giving them $5,000 it's helpful, but it's not helpful. And it's not going to go to what they're asking for. Then you would just eliminate that from the pool.
We asked them in their application as well, the amount they're asking for what would you do if you were funded less?
Right.
So that they have to be contemplating that.
And so that's something that the committee can contemplate as well to make it a.
And we may not be
determination.
the only agency that they're asking for money.
Right.
We asked that question as well.
So are we sort of in agreement on a 10%?
I mean, we'll get, I think, formal direction from you on Monday, but I think this conversation has been fantastic, and I'm sure that Alex appreciates, being able to.
I mean, this is great. I mean, this is.
Okay, I'll talk loud. This gives us a guideline, like T. Michael was saying. We just need a guideline. And we always, and I'm upfront telling them, this is, just a guideline here. And what you request is not what, you might not get. But this just helps us. And I think I like what Chancellor is saying about and something that we'll look at, it's the length. Because I looked at the new list of all the people that apply, and there's some that are, they just started yesterday.
Yeah.
Well, we're not, we're not going to we're going to look at it, but, they got to be serious about it. And I agree that the length of time, and that's why we went ahead and wanted to get the legacies, because that way we didn't we didn't have to think about them. They've been around for a long time, and we know they're going to use the money wisely.
Right.
So I do agree on that, but we just want a guideline so we can start looking at this. And I really appreciate. what
Okay,
we can
so Monday night, how would this be written up? I mean,
Just as is, and we'll be asking for consensus on how to approach the legacy partners and how to approach the budget.
I'm just saying, we already know, so then how do we,
We'll need a motion to that effect.
On Monday, not
on Monday? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay,
I appreciate the dialogue. This has been
all right.
excellent.
Anything else?
I just add, Alex, thank you for your time and your leadership on this committee, and
Thank you very much.
appreciate your service, sir.
We'll take it seriously.
Yeah, and your check is in the mail.
Martha has it.
All right, so anything else? All right,
Not for me, sir. Thank you.
All right, then.
Just, I will remind you that I'll be out of the office tomorrow, and Mr. Carnavale will be running point should you have anything you need.
all right. There's no further business. We stand adjourned.
Oh, so we'll wish you a happy birthday. Your
Oh.
birthday's on